Great. That's showing as everyone would expect to see it on the slides.
Yep.
Um, Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I'm really pleased to speak to all of you. My name's Charlotte Lewis, and I'm the head of communities at the Centre for Aging Better. To Centre for Aging Better, we are what we call a Centre for Excellence on Aging and Demographic Change. We're essentially a charity that does a lot of research and campaigning and trying to influence local and national government to address inequalities in later life that we see across the country. And today I'm going to be talking about how we make age-friendly town and parish councils. And the kind of content that I'm going to be speaking to is drawing on a recently published guide or a guide we published towards the end of last year called the Age Friendly Town and Parish Guide, which I put in the chat. And in terms of the 15, 20 minutes I'm going to speak to you today, so I'm going to start off by just sharing, making the case for this. So why do we need to make town and parishes what we call age friendly? Um, and then I'll share a little bit about what it actually means in practice to make a town or parish age friendly. And then I'll finish off by sharing kind of what might be some of the first steps for you to kind of start to do some of this work or make those improvements in your area. So to kick off on the case, and some of this will not be new information to those of you who have chosen voluntarily to come to this call. Well, oh, sorry. Um, so we know that people who live in town and parish council areas tend to be older. So if we were to look at the population of England, 18% of people are age 65 and over, but in areas that are covered by town and parish councils, this figure is 23%. Now that might not seem like a massive difference, but the UN actually defines a super aged society as a society where over 20% of people are age 65 and over. So that does mean that on average, town and parish council areas are well into being defined as super aged societies. And it's from this starting point that our population is continuing to age. So this graph on the screen shows the percentage change that we are expecting in the population in the next 20 years in those purple bars and in the next 40 years in the green bars. And as you can kind of just visually see, that increase is going up across the age groups, the biggest rise by far being the 80 plus age group on the right-hand side of the screen. So we're predicting that the number of people aged 80 in England will over double in the next 40 years. And in many ways, this is really fantastic news for society and specifically for town and parishes. So we know that older people contribute enormously to our communities, whether that be as volunteers, as workers, as carers, just as engaged citizens. And this chart on the screen just shows one way that this is happening. So the chart shows volunteering rates by age, and it shows how people aged 65 to 74 are the age group who are most likely to volunteer, and that's followed by the 75 plus. And you can see that across all of the age groups, there was a significant dip during the amount that any ages were volunteering post-COVID, and that those rates haven't returned to the pre-COVID levels for anyone. And in this context, it makes it that outsized contribution of people that are over 65 even more important to think about how our communities are working and supporting one another. So this is just one example of how we know that when towns support older residents to be actively involved, we can see social, economic, cultural benefits that make life better for all age groups. So with that, hopefully making you think this is something we should care about or do something about, I want to now introduce what we actually mean when we say an age-friendly town or parish. So to start off, also, I'm going to share a definition of what we mean by an age-friendly community. That's a term that is used quite a lot and you may have heard before. So we describe that an age-friendly community is it being a place of any size that helps people to age well and live a good later life. So both of those elements. So that means it's somewhere where people are able to stay living in their homes, participate in the activities that they value, and contribute to their communities for as long as possible. So this means that they're places where people feel connected, feel respected, places that promote the behaviors that help us stay healthy and active for longer, but also reducing the barriers that might be in place to our staying involved if or when our abilities decline. So To help communities across the world sort of realize this as a vision, the World Health Organization developed the Age-Friendly Communities Framework back in 2007. And that kind of acts as a guide to help communities sort of take the steps to reach this goal of becoming an age-friendly community. And this image on the screen shows that framework. So it shows what we call the 8 domains of age-friendly communities. So this is the kind of core framework that was developed by the World Health Organization by speaking to older people and looking at evidence all around the world. So these 8 domains are the aspects of community life that help us to age well. So what's really important here is you'll notice that this is not just about health and social care, but this is about considering all of the variety of aspects across the built and the social environment that can make a difference. So these cover on the built environment, outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation and housing. And then looking more into the social environment, looks at social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment, and then thinking more about kind of more some of the statutory support services that might be in place, thinking about communication and information and community support and health services. So this framework is really about encouraging anyone to pay attention to the needs and perspectives of older people under each of these different domain areas, because we know that that can make the difference between older age becoming a barrier or not in a community. So, with this framework in mind, it doesn't matter whether you are looking to create an age-friendly town, a county, a city. These things that people need in their community don't change, regardless of, the size of the place. But what we know can change is the ability, powers, resources for people and organizations in that place to be able to make a difference on these domain areas. What you can do as a town under transport is going to look quite different to what you can do as a whole city region under transport. So that is why we've translated those 8 domains into this age-friendly town and parish activity wheel, which is in the guide that I mentioned that we can put in the chat. So this wheel summarizes the actions that town and parish councils can take to make their place more age-friendly under those different domain areas. So, in terms of what's included in here, in some cases, it's just about playing an advocacy role, shouting about why this stuff matters to different partners, perhaps your principal authority. In other cases, it's about just paying particular needs to the attention of people as they get older under some of the things you're already doing. And in some cases, it can be about delivering or supporting something new in your area. So this wheel was produced in collaboration with town and parish councils all across England and Wales. And as such, every single activity that's listed here is being delivered by a town or parish, but no one place can do all of these things. And some of these things are going to be more appropriate for some town or parishes than others. So I'd invite you to look at and consider this wheel as like an overview of what you could do rather than an instruction list of you have to do all of these things to be age friendly. So within the guide, there is a page that has this wheel, but then there's also a very short kind of path page that goes into more detail on each of the domains that explains a little bit about kind of what this looks like in a town or parish and gives some case studies as well about different town and parishes that are doing things to make this a reality. So to give you a flavour of that, I'm just going to zoom in on a couple of domains for now. So under transport, as a town council, you could be supporting alternatives to public or private transport, like community transport. That could be through your town or parish actually delivering a community transport service, or it could just be about working with local community groups or supporting any existing schemes that are already in place. If your town or parish maintains any parking or bus shelters, you could review these to make sure that they are accessible to all ages. With car parking, that might be about ensuring there are affordable options that don't exclude people who rely on cash or don't have a smartphone. For bus shelters, this could be about making sure that they're weather protected and crucially have appropriate seating with armrests where possible. Under social participation, the council can play a really important role in supporting older residents to self-organise so they can do the things that they want to do within their local area. Um, and by doing this, you'll see that lots of things will happen that meet the diverse interests of lots of different people. So not making assumptions that all older people in your town want this kind of activity, but instead asking people what they want and supporting people to do those things. And one way we're seeing this happen in some town councils is through them supporting things like an old local older people's forum to exist by doing things like providing free room hire or helping with funding applications or connecting the forum to what's already going on across the town. Um, and then a final domain example under community support and health services, it might be about you providing information about aging well. So principal authority, Devon principal and principal authorities will have a public health team who will want to share like local opportunities and information about how residents can age well. So things like what strength and balance classes might be available or information about nutrition and hydration as we age. So town and parish councils can play a really important role in getting those messages out there, especially to residents who aren't online. So there's just a flavour of a few of the things that are highlighted within that wheel. And to bring it to life a little bit, when I kind of last ran this as a bigger webinar, we had some colleagues from Yate Town Council in the southwest, near kind of Bristol, and Faversham Town Council in Kent, and they shared a bit about what they were doing in their towns to make some of this stuff a reality. So I just wanted to bring in a few of those examples now. So in Faversham, they've been prioritising changes to the built environment. So they have done some audits of their public spaces to make sure, and then use that to make improvements to seating, clearer signage, drop curbs, better crossings and footpaths. Um, Also, like I mentioned about community transport, following the loss of a local bus service to local villages, the town council secured a grant from the county council to lease a minibus and are now providing a service to their outlying villages. And 90% of their volunteer drivers are over 50, with two of them being in their 70s. And then to bring in Yates as an example, they've been really prioritizing creating lots of opportunities for social connection. So they have what they call a pop-in cafe, which is open every weekday for customers and volunteers who are over 50. They also host within that their popular memory cafe, which is a kind of specific cafe to provide a bit of a listening ear and free activities for anyone who might be experiencing memory loss and their carers. And they also run a really successful, what they call an annual Yate Aging Better Festival, which takes place in the shopping centre, where they host a range of different community groups, social activities, volunteering. It's all just about bringing together all the fantastic things that are happening in that town to make people more aware of them and then be able to participate in more things. And they often offer free classes and things like that to get people interested. So those are just a couple of examples to try and bring it to life a little bit. So I've presented that over that wheel, and I've only taken you through a few examples of some of the things that are included in there. So the final bit of this presentation, I want to share how you can go from looking at that big long list of all the things that you could do within your town or parish to actually deciding what is appropriate for you to do, like what do you have the resource to do, and being able to make a start on that. So within our guide that I've mentioned, the last part is called the age-friendly activity planning section, and it kind of is there to help to guide you through that process. So I've just kind of copied and pasted the sort of three sections of that within our guide onto the screen here. So we've got sort of these three templates to help you go through that process. So the first one is about mapping what's already happening. So it's a bit of a making that wheel blank so that you can start to put in some of the things that are already happening in your town or your parish that is making it a good place to age for older residents. As I talk through today, you might be thinking we already have some of those things happening and you will have things happening. So how can you make sure that you're one, making those things more visible, actually showing that these things are, you're not just doing them, but they are actually what we'd call age friendly, but also using that to inform, okay, there maybe are a few gaps under a few of these different domain areas. The second bit of the template is around kind of developing some action. So you might be working with, across your councillors, any of your clerks or any other members of staff that you have, and with with older residents to decide, off the back of that mapping work, what's a few actions that you might take under those different domains. And that template there has all of the domains. You might say we're going to take one action under each of the domains, and in the next 2 years, you might just decide to do a couple, or you might decide to do many. That's kind of up to you. And the final bit of that template is what we've called a bit convolutedly ways of working for meaningful change. So this is a template that can help you put in place not just the activities that you do, but the ways that you can work as a town council that really embeds this thinking about aging and older people, which could be about, having a local councillor who acts as an older person's champion, or looking at some of your demographic data to see kind of what actually is the age breakdown of your community, or creating more, making sure that anything that you do to engage with residents is age friendly and that all ages are able to participate. So there's some examples of what that can look like within the guide. And to just finish us off on this final slide to kind of bring that to life, what that action plan that you might create could look like. We've just created an action plan for Make Believe Town Council over the next few years. And they've decided to take one action under each of the domain areas. So just to run through what those are very briefly, under outdoor spaces and buildings, they are recruiting volunteers to conduct an audit of the benches in their town to identify opportunities to install more where there are gaps. Under transport, they are going to facilitate older residents in their town taking part in an upcoming transport consultation on a proposed bus route change. Under housing, they're going to advocate for any new housing that's going to be built in their town to be built to an accessible standard and to have a mix of housing options that meet the needs of residents of different ages. Under social participation, they have decided they're going to host an annual event for International Day of Older People, which is on the 1st of October, with opportunities for residents to try new things, including working with their local leisure centre to offer free taster classes. Under respect and social inclusion, they're going to always use the term older people rather than the elderly in their communications, as we know that's generally the kind of the preference of people. Under civic participation and employment, they're going to encourage any local groups to offer flexible volunteering opportunities. Under communication and information, they're going to start an age-friendly newsletter, which shares local opportunities on a quarterly basis. And they're going to apply for funding so that they can do this online as well as delivering paper copies. And under communication and information, they're going to work with a local charity, local community group to pilot running a community walking group for all ages. So hopefully that kind of just brought to life a little bit of what that sort of action plan could look like. And at Centre for Aging Better, we're going to be we're really keen over the next few years to be working with town councils to support you to develop these action plans. So I will stop sharing there, and yeah, really happy to have a chat or answer any questions about this.
Has anybody got any questions for Charlotte or any comments to make? Yeah, Joe?
Do you have a link to the document?
The guide, yeah.
Yeah, it's because it was really great presentation. Thank you. Did you mention that there's a term for populations where over 20% were
super
older
age
people,
societies.
super age society, and is it 20%?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the WHO and the UN kind of have this as a shared definition.
And that's over which age? Sorry,
So it's when 20% of the population is over 65. As a country, our average is 19% at the moment, so we'll be 20% soon. But on average in town and parish council areas, it's 20. We're at 23%. But you can find that data out for your local town or parish as well to see where.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look on I'm in Ivybridge, and 26% of our population are retired, and 36% are over 55. So I think Ivybridge is quite super aged, which is
and I think it's not about saying that is a necessarily a universally good or bad thing. It's just a
Mm,
recognition of that's the change in society that we are seeing, and
yeah.
rural areas in particular, and town and parish areas are seeing that more quickly, or they're further along that curve. So it's that saying, how do our societies, how do our communities need to work if they're going to respond to this kind of changing reality? And there's loads
Agreed.
of opportunities, but there are some kind of quite practical challenges as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And my last question is because like when I've lived here now 14 years and I've noticed that our population is generally older and transportation is a real
Mhm.
problem here. And does the Centre for Aging Better have kind of resources to help argue the case for, say, improved bus services, or do you have like evidence? Because of course everything has to be evidenced, otherwise it's not value for money. Um, are you
Yes,
able to support in that kind of campaigning to try and improve bus services and, for
yes,
example?
I think that, I mean, there's probably a limit to what we can do in like an individual local basis to support that campaigning, but we certainly have kind of materials that can be used to help make that case. I think we've got, and I can put some things in the chat as well. We've got things that kind of show the importance of transport, and being able to access kind of transport as you age. I think in particular as you'll know that as you get older, you're more likely to not be driving, and therefore you're going to be more reliant on public transport. And then you combine that with in rural communities where there is a lack of public transport,
Mm,
and you've got this and an aging and a higher population, and you've got this sweet spot of like a real issue for people,
yeah.
and that stops people being able to attend access the things that they have to, whether that's a GP appointment or something like that.
Mm,
But, it also stops us just being able to get out and go and see some friends, or like go shopping, or all those things that matter to just living a full connected life as well. But, not being able to do those things also have kind of health knock-on impacts as well. So we've certainly got materials that kind of make the case for that. And then I think that it's also just about how do you facilitate those connections between residents and the decision makers to help to share that like directly and inform that, because I think sometimes that's the most powerful thing. So when we've delivered this webinar before, we had colleagues from Flintshire County Council, which is a Welsh council, and Flint Town Council. And they have a local kind of older residents group in Flint Town Council. And they were sharing how their bus route kind of basically misses out a load of villages, and that's the bus route that takes them into the local town. And the bus company just didn't even know, they didn't even realize that that was happening. And the fact that it was kind of especially Flintshire who was coordinating it, which is, that importance of that connection with the principal authority, but it doesn't have to be, that just being that conduit between the people that are making those decisions about bus routes and those residents who are just able to say, this is where we live, this is what our life is like, is often sometimes as, if not more powerful than the evidence that we can say about, if you can't access a bus service, then this is what happens. So I've put the link to the town and parish council guide in the chat, and I'll fish out a couple of bits as well whilst we're chatting, that can specifically focus on that transport
Yeah,
piece.
super. Yeah, luckily that my local MP has actually just sent out to all residents a survey on transport. And so I, when you said that, I was wondering, I'd go knock on the door of my neighbours who uh, including my mum, who lives around the corner, and yeah, just kind of encourage them to say, for
Mm,
example, we can't get to our local hospital in less than 90 minutes and two buses. Um, and so someone is listening, whether they can do anything or not, but
yeah.
having sort of general, like well researched, like as your centre kind of information to back it up. It's not just some noisy brand new councillor in Ivybridge being awkward. There's evidence, there's research. So thank you.
That's okay. So I sent you, I'm just going to do this like right now so that you have it. Um, the town and parish council guides, which takes you through those 8 domains and summarizes why they matter in a town and parish council context. But we also have this, I'm going to put in the chat now, the Age Friendly Communities Handbook, which is a little bit more, it's not kind of town and council specific, but talks through those 8 domains and kind of what they mean and like what the need is for them. And it has a few kind of key stats on the different domains themselves, which would include transport there as well. So we've got a few. Um, yeah, some summary of why it matters. Um, like I think you've got stats, things like of of people aged 65 and over, 32% never use public transport. People aged 80 plus are the least likely to use public transport, that sort of thing. And I'm also going to put in the chat as well. Well, actually, no, we haven't got that one. I'll find a few other transport bits as well.
You could send those links through to us as well, and we will
Yeah.
put it in, certainly in next week's e-bulletin as well, and on our website as well. Thank you, Charlotte. Any other questions for Charlotte or any comments? I've just got one thing I was going to flag up, Charlotte, your reference to the reduction in volunteering.
Mm.
And it's quite significant. I think lots of us who, live in our local parishes and towns can recognise that.
Mm.
Given that, by volunteering, it sort of deals with social isolation and stuff like that. Any real tips on how that could be reignited? Any sort of things that people have done to try and I know there are groups in town that need volunteers, and are open to having volunteers, but it's making that connection. I just wondered if there's any sort of practical tips or hints that
Yes.
might
So
be.
there is within the guide, there's some kind of case study examples around volunteering. But we also
Right.
do have, I'm trying to find it as we speak, but I can send it out afterwards. We've got, again, a resource that's like what makes what we call age-friendly volunteering. So like how can you do volunteering in a way that's going to appeal to um, people in later life and therefore increase the number of volunteers that you have. So a big one, as I mentioned in the presentation, is about flexibility. Another one is about kind of how you promote those volunteering opportunities, and there's a number of other ones as well. So I will find that for you and put it in the chat.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
also
very much.
celebrating volunteers as well, I think is a big one. Things like little like volunteer awards and having volunteer fairs and things like that, which can help promote it and also celebrate the contributions that people are making.
Paul, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. You picked me to the post on the volunteer question. I was astonished to see how the volunteer rates came down in COVID and haven't gone back up again. In addition to being a town councillor, I'm also a member of our local U3A, and I'm a regional representative on the National U3A Council. And I'm hearing all the time that people are having difficulty getting people to volunteer for local committees for U3As. So I can see, I knew it was part of a bigger picture. I hadn't realised just how big a picture
Mm.
until I saw that graphic. But I also just wanted to flag up the U3A as a resource that may exist in your communities. Many people don't seem to have heard of the U3A. And wonder what it is. But we have two U3As in Tavistock with a combined membership of must be getting on for 700 people, all of whom are in the third age, which is defined loosely as no longer in full-time employment and free of family responsibilities, more or less. It's not age defined, but in practice, people tend to be in their 60s and above, sometimes a long way above. But it is a phenomenal resource for making social connection, in addition to lifelong learning. And certainly, if it's something that exists in your parish, it's worth being aware of it, and the town council or a parish council helping to promote it.
Yeah, I totally agree with them being a great resource.
Mm.
Any other questions for Charlotte or any comments before we? I think it was a really good presentation, Charlotte. Thank you. It's nice and succinct and to the point, and it's pointing us off to other information now. And I never knew there was an International Older People Day on the 1st of October. So there you go. So that's something as well that maybe we can promote nearer the time for our councils maybe to engage with. So if there's no further questions, I'd just like to thank Charlotte for attending today and for giving us a presentation. And like we say, the recording will go onto our website with some links. And thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for
Thank
attending.
you. Just to flag
Thank
a
you.
couple of bits that I put in the chat there. So I put the guide in again at the bottom, but within that, on that page, it's got the guide itself, and an optimized version for print if you want to print out and kind of use it. But it's also got a link there to register. We've got a an informal kind of age-friendly town and parish peer group, just to continue to share learning across town and parishes about how they're approaching this work. So if that's something that you would like to kind of stay in touch with, then you can register at the bottom of that link that I've just put in there now. And then I also have put in, I found the guide that we have around age inclusive volunteering there as well, if that's of particular use.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Charlotte. Thank you,
You.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.